Cults. They are oftentimes just a means for the leader to make a little income. They offer a service that, on the surface, appears to be some kind of magic solution to everyone's problem, but really, it's just a way for them to make a quick buck. The Miracle of Love cult, now known as the Center of the Golden One, is no exception. Today, we will dive deep into this modern-day growing cult from someone, yours truly, who almost got sucked right into it. Today, we are going to open our minds and let the fresh air in. Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're brand new. My name is Erin, and I am fascinated by all things cults, true crime, and unique spiritual practices. I upload 2, but hopefully 3 videos a week on one of these topics, so if this is something that interests you, please consider subscribing and hitting that notification bell because I would absolutely love to have you here. This month, I'm also featuring a single parent in each of my videos, and today's single parent is Carly. Carly writes, "Hi, Erin. I've been loving your videos on twin flames." Thank you, Carly. That's really sweet. "Cults are so crazy. Glad you're helping some people by shedding some light. I am Carly. I have an 18-month-old daughter named Lucy, and I am currently in school getting my master's in social work to be able to provide for my daughter." That's amazing. Congratulations. Wow. "I was receiving assistance with daycare costs, but the assistance got canceled because I'm not technically working or getting income. We are living off my student loans as of now because if I work full-time, which I would need to do, I can't get the amount of student loans to cover my school. I saw your offer to help some with an Amazon wish list for single mothers, so I thought it wouldn't hurt to reach out. Please let me know if I can share my wish list with you." And I actually did ask her to share her list with me, and you will find it in the pinned comment down below. So if you have the means this year, please consider helping her out by purchasing either an item for her daughter or one of the household items she has listed just to give her a little help this holiday season. Thank you all so much for your support. I really appreciate it. And with that, let's get right into today's topic. A couple weeks ago, I shared my experience of realizing I was well on my way to getting sucked into a cult. I thought it was just this online meditation and breathwork group, but boy, was I mistaken. I guess a red flag should have been that they never told me the organization they were a part of. It was just some dude starting a Zoom session, and then we would all meditate together. But anyways, I did share my experience in a video, and if you'd like to see it, I'm going to link it here and down below in the description box. So if you haven't seen that video, I highly recommend just going to check it out real quick so you have a little more context for this video. In that video, I described what it was like to realize that this group was actually connected to a cult. And as I dove deeper, I realized that the center was a rebrand for a dangerous cult from the 80s called Miracle of Love. Like, this thing has some deep roots. Miracle of Love was created by David Swanson and Carol Seidman in 1987. They were both born in the early 50s and became interested in spirituality as they grew into their teen years and young adult lives. They didn't know each other growing up, but after several years of exploring different faiths and spiritual practices, they had both spent time in India separately, and Carol, although she was born Jewish, felt led to explore Christianity, and this will be relevant a little bit later. But finally, they both ended up in California under the same spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, who was actually a founder of another cult, the ISKCON, or International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Obviously, yes, now I will have to do a deep dive on that. Now, this is where things get a little shifty because after 10 years of diving deep into their spiritual study under that spiritual master, they both noticed some intense energy coming from David. So that must mean he is the reincarnation of God, right? So he would go on to claim to be a spiritual being in human form who spoke for God. And his name would now be Gurasana, which means Golden One. Instead of David, he would now be called Lord Garasana. And as for Carol, well, obviously she couldn't go by Carol anymore. I mean, can you imagine? Lord Garasana, divine being, introduces his now wife, Carol. It just doesn't really roll off the tongue or make a lot of sense, does it? So she obviously needed a godly name too. So hers would be Kalindi, which conveniently means the sun. So we have the golden one and the sun leading what they would now call Miracle of Love. And they started off pretty well with about 10 to 12 followers right off the bat, who I assume had been practitioners of ISKCON also and had probably studied under that same spiritual master. What was so special about their new religion, well, thanks to their international spiritual studies and those links to Christianity, they decided to kind of combine the two ideologies. So it was kind of like if Osho was Christian or some kind of weird Christian Hindu hybrid. And I honestly speculate that David practiced with Osho or was at least familiar with his teachings because not only was this group started the year after the commune up in Oregon had been like basically outed publicly, Miracle of Love was started. And some followers of Osho who had left the commune or had kind of just fallen away from Osho after all of the scandal that had occurred kind of filtered their way down into California and actually became part of Miracle of Love. And David Garasana's meditation practice, or GMP, was very similar to Osho's dynamic meditation. There was intense breath work, screaming, sometimes movement, and then a deep trance-like meditation involved in these group meditations. So, although this practice dipped into New Age spirituality, there was also a heavy emphasis on God and one's connection to God. The meditation was a way to let go of all attachments, all emotions, and connect only to God. And this, according to Gurasana, was the true purpose of life itself. That life was hard and sad and terrible because of our attachments to material items, to other people, to money. And the more you could let go of those things and make room for God, the more you would be connected to God and the happier your life would be. The truer your life would become. You would be coming home to God, and the cycle of life and death would just completely end, and you would, I guess, just exist on a plane of pure harmony. And now I looked for exactly what this means. Like, does it mean you will never die? That through these practices you will become immortal? I guess I just don't fully understand this cycle of life and death concept as something that's negative because that's throughout nature, right? And even if you believe in God or Christianity's version of God, if he created everything to live and then die. And then for humans, based on your behavior in this world, you either go to a good place or a bad place. So it's a little bit of an interesting concept, in my opinion. And when I joined the online breathwork class, it was because I believed that getting rid of negative emotions and negative self talk would help my confidence. And if I was speaking more positively to myself and treating myself better, I would be able to achieve the goals that I had. So I believed that I would feel less stuck in my life. But in my meditation practices, there was never a mention of this concept of all. Of course, people talked about God, and most people in the group seemed to believe in an entity that they called God. But I never got the sense that the purpose of the meditation was to connect more to God. I always considered that I was connecting more to myself. But I suppose in hindsight, they were framing all of this as connection to yourself, and that is the connection to God. So I can see that the group was definitely like a gateway group into more of these kinds of ideas. Our purpose in life was to, quote, go home to God, unquote. So during Garasana's reign, he wrote a book called Breaking the Cycle of Birth and Death. And this was essentially the Miracle of Love's Bible. And it wasn't so much a book as it was a collection of quotes of things Garasana had said. So it was just a book of quotes. But it was also expected that every member of the cult always have this book on hand, like even in the bathroom, so that the follower was constantly reminded of their duty and devotion to their practice of serving and connecting to God. Grasa made people believe that this life and these human feelings that you have are just illusions, that you must break free of these illusions in order to truly be free. If you don't break free, you're bound to have another life of suffering after you die in this one. You must constantly pray to be let free of this suffering. So your life just becomes prayer, meditation, prayer, meditation. And of course, you're never praying or meditating enough. So that adds a nice healthy dose of shame into the equation. Because if you aren't devoted to these practices and you're a cult leader, then you aren't devoted to God. And for that, you would be publicly shamed and punished. So we have David as Garasana, and he is the reincarnation of God. So that would imply that he could never die, right? Especially because he's claiming that through his meditation practice, you can end the cycle of life and death. So what would happen when he would die in 1995? Well, according to the cult, he didn't die. Not really. In fact, the vast energy of God was so intense that the energy had to be transferred into someone or something else. And conveniently, Kalindi was there to take over. So she now was the ultimate authority of this group. And although there isn't a ton of information about what this group looked like while Garasana was alive, there is a lot more about what happened once Kalindi took over, which is honestly, it's just so reminiscent of Scientology to me because L. Ron Hubbard, the creator of the scam that we know to be Scientology, was also believed to never be able to die. So when he did die in 1986, leaders said that his body had become an impediment to the important work he was doing on this plane of existence. So he was still alive in spirit, but was just not using that body anymore and was now working on very important things on another plane of existence. So, yeah, all this was just pulled right out of the cult leader playbook. And L. Ron Hubbard passed away the year before Miracle of Love was formed. So I just feel like it was so intentional on Garasana's and Kalindi's part. And apparently, Garasana was visibly weak and ill. Instead of publicly announcing that he was sick, which people now speculate that he had actually died from AIDS, it was just accepted within this group that his body was overcome by God and it couldn't handle that energy anymore. So this is when Kalindi's reign really began. Kalindi wrote a book and self-published it, and it was called Ultimate Freedom: Union with God. And apparently it's basically a book full of her nudes. I'm sure there's some text in there too, but apparently it's just a huge books of her pictures naked. I guess this was to inspire the idea in her followers' mind that, oh, she's so free. She's not afraid to be naked. She's embodying total freedom, which, everyone has different takes on nudity. And so, whatever, you do you, girl. But I do think it's weird that she made all her followers purchase this book. Like, this cult is mine now. Go buy my book. I'm naked. You're welcome. It just seems a little strange to me. Kalindi would also go on to create the Intensive. The Intensive was a 6-day retreat where Miracle of Love would introduce their concepts and ideas and practices to attendees, and these attendees would engage in all of the practices as a way to gain ultimate freedom in their lives. Typically, the group was alluring to people in their mid to late 30s and onward, folks who were just really busy in life, overwhelmed, who felt like they had a lot of responsibility, whether it was due to family or work or maybe even both. These people were searching for more and searching for a deeper connections to themselves and to a higher power. They were just kind of coasting in life. Life had begun to feel mundane. So they were searching for more meaning and more connection and possibly even a community. Over nearly a week, 6 whole days, folks are in this group setting being encouraged to expose some of the most vulnerable and dark sides to themselves. They're engaging in the Garasana style meditation, deep, intense breath work, big, intense releasing of feelings that include screaming and crying and a letting go of sorts. And apparently, as the workshop goes on, by the fourth day, the attendees were just exhausted. They weren't eating much or sleeping much because they had to be devoted to this meditation practice. And the leaders of the workshop keep giving them positive reinforcement. They keep encouraging participants to go deeper, release more, share more. They keep exposing parts of themselves that maybe no one has ever seen before. And by the fifth day, participants are like elated. They apparently felt lighter, they were dancing, and then, of course, they were being love bombed by the leaders. They were being praised for their vulnerabilities and how open they were being. And that just encourages them to be more open and share more. And then finally, on the sixth day, they're shown a video of Kalindi, who shares with them that this elation they're feeling isn't just endorphins running high, which is what I think in hindsight it is. She says that it's God's energy, and they're now able to channel and experience God's energy through this practice. They feel a certain euphoria that they've never felt before. And this is all the evidence that they need that this practice works. So they leave and go back to their lives feeling fresh, anew, ready to tackle their real life again. But inevitably, when challenges arise in their real life, they go back to the group or back to the leaders and go through this practice again and again and again until they're so dependent on this group being the thing that makes them feel good. The group is responsible. The practice is responsible. Gorasana, Kalindi themselves are responsible for that feel-good energy, that euphoria. They can't even claim that it's themselves being good to themselves. They're giving all of the credit to these cult leaders. So they look to just them for that feeling over and over and over again. They start to believe that following Kalindi is the only way that they're going to feel that elation, that happiness. And by this point, there's no turning back. As folks get deeper and deeper into the teachings of this group, they begin to learn that in order to gain this freedom, they have to give. And luckily, by this point, Miracle of Love had become a nonprofit organization. So lucky for the participants, they could just donate to Miracle of Love. And the more you donate, the closer to God you become, and the closer to the leaders you become. It's just all so transparent, and that makes it so aggravating to me. At this point, they're not even really offering a service. They're like, come pay for these meditations that you could do at home if you wanted, and then donate all of your money to us. Some people gave all of their money, including cashing out their retirement, to this cult because they truly believed that it would lead them to like a heaven on earth. It's just like so devious. And like all cult leaders, Kalindi had propped herself up as a being that not only channeled God's word, but she also embodied all of his energy. So the closer you were to her, the closer you were to God. So obviously people began to move to her commune to be closer to her, or they would live at a Miracle of Love center. And now this is always so hard for people to believe. So I just want to take a brief minute to kind of break this down for you all so that everyone can have a little bit of a better understanding of how this happened, because people weren't just like moving there so they could meditate. Kalindi and Garasana both had already indoctrinated people into believing that their path was the path to God. They had been implementing this idea into people's minds that nothing else matters. No attachment to anything material or other people should ever keep you away from your connection to God. And through this Garasana meditation practice, people are basically primed to be more open-minded to new ideas. When you've gotten to such a deep meditative trance-like state, your brain is just way more open to subliminal or maybe even direct messaging. I don't know how many of you do have a meditation practice, but I'm sure you've felt it before. Just when you are in a deep place, you feel like you're almost floating, your mind is completely blank. And if someone whispered something to you like, this is what connection to God feels like, or the more you give, the more you connect to God, you're going to be just more susceptible to starting to believe that, especially if that's the messaging you're hearing over and over and over and over again. So now they have all of this money coming in because people are just so excited to be closer to God. And plus, they make you feel seen. And maybe you haven't been feeling seen by your boss, your partner, your children, your friends. You've been love bombed. You feel like they value you as a person. And perhaps you're in a place where you don't feel valued in your real life. So, one of the ways they would convince you to move to one of the communes is by telling you that you had a special purpose within Miracle of Love. So you feel special, you feel important. And if you're someone that hasn't felt seen by your boss, your spouse, your kids, your friends, this could really be impactful for you to hear. Everything you need emotionally, the cult is providing. And not only providing, but it's discouraging you from seeking anything else on the outside. The group is so centered around love for God being the only love you should experience in life, so that even if a couple wanted to move to the commune together, they were rarely assigned the same housing. And if you felt love for another person, well, that is just a distraction from the love you should be giving God. So they discouraged monogamy. They didn't think of sex as an emotional connection. It was purely a physical one. So you could basically sleep with anybody as long as you were only giving your heart to God. Oh, and you have a child outside the commune? Well, not even the love you have for your child can or should replace the love you have for God. So if you're abandoning your child to give all your love to God, not only was that considered a good thing, but it was considered an important thing to do. And it's really just so crazy. And it's wild that I just covered Osho last week on this channel because this is what he did too. So it's really no surprise to me that Garasana and Kalindi practiced Osho's teachings. I mean, it really just seems like they're using the exact same playbook. I mean, the followers were even given new names once they moved to the commune. This is part of the stripping down of your previous identity, and it's so classic in a group like this. They even discouraged followers from visiting family and would claim that they were picking up bad spiritual practices from the people they were visiting. No worries if you abandon your family because you're serving God. So, in the long run, you're also serving your family. It's just, honestly, it's so heartbreaking to know that so many relationships and families were broken up because of this woman, Kalindi or Carol, was just looking for a cash cow. That's what she wanted. She wanted to sit back, relax, not do anything, have some power, and then just make money. Several people have gone on to share their stories online about how they lost family members because of this cult, and I just wanted to take a moment to share one now. The group has done a great job of scrubbing the internet, so it's been really difficult to find information on the inner workings of this group. So, this story presents a really good example of what things looked like from the outside of a family member at the time. She provided some details I'm not going to share just to protect her privacy, but she does write, "My other stepson has quit his job to focus on his spiritual path with MOL, Miracle of Love. I have filed for divorce as my husband recently announced that I was an attachment, that marriage is an attachment, a dream, separating us from God, deterring him from his path to live with the commune in Germany. All the chat about fidelity being an attachment, the regular pornography that they watch, is foreign to my sense of love and morality. Then again, a relationship is not supposed to be monogamous, and is purely for physical pleasure, not deterring from the path to God. Our children are attachments. It is a selfish cult about the self only breaking free, never to reincarnate and return to earth again. They've literally set it up to make it look like this beautiful gift of life that we're all living is almost actually like hell on earth. And the only way for them to not have to be reborn into this terrible, terrible world again is by this meditation and by abandoning literally everything they've ever known. And of course, there are terrible things going on in the world. The world can be an ugly place, but it's uglier when you force people to abandon their families, their friends, their children, so that they can what? Go watch in a commune and pray. I'm just at a loss for words of how much my heart goes out to the family members of the people in this cult and the people who got so deeply ingrained in the cult, because when it inevitably came crashing down, they had absolutely nobody. They had literally basically told everyone that who would ever love them, like, you're the devil, you're the devil, you're the devil, you're the devil, you've made life hell. Like, that is so detrimental to someone's mental health. She continues, when one is a master, there is no continued work in general society to share the goodwill and love of God. Rather, become a monk with servants to take care of you. To do this, one must believe in Garasana, Golden One, God incarnate, in order to live in one of their communes. Do the constant ego stripping, let in God ultimate work that is never, ever enough. Having a job is an encumbrance to achieving this, so the richer, more financially independent you are, the better. In fact, they believe that this is God's gift to you. If you are poor or chronically ill or handicapped, this is God's will, and you will not reincarnate as the work cannot be done. I'm trying, I think it's really sad. Sad's not even like the appropriate word. Sorry, this is just really getting to me, because to imply that your disability or handicap is like God's will and you don't deserve to be here because you like can't work in a cult, it's like so aggravating to me. And it's like people born with those sets of circumstances are already so judged and challenged, and to make them feel even smaller is really awful. I'm sorry. I don't think I have, like, when I first looked up this group, there was barely any information online about it. It was a couple of years ago when I got out. And so uncovering more, um, I guess it just makes me have to kind of reprocess things a little bit, because to be fair, I was never actually like in a commune in the cult as deep as some of these people. I got out before they started having in-person retreats again. Thank goodness. But the fact that there are people who are potentially believing this stuff, it just breaks my heart, for lack of a better word. Whew. So, to continue, one has to be physically and monetarily healthy in order to do the necessary work to get off this planet and join Garasana in the other realm where all is ecstasy. Thank goodness my children are critical thinkers, and despite their father's aggressiveness and obsession with Miracle of Love, they've stayed true to their scientific minds. Whew, I'm sorry, I got a little emotional. That hearing that really got me. And she wrote that. I only hope this mother has been able to heal, because again, this is information that I found back in 2011, 2012. Or it was posted, it was written in 2011, 2012, because the group has done such a good job of scrubbing the internet and rebranding into the center of the Golden One. But it's the same group led by the same people. And the fact that any group is justifying tearing a parent away from their children and family is just disgusting to me. And it was just for money. That was the end game. And that's the end game in a lot of these groups. It's just money. Sorry again. It's so selfish. It's really, really selfish to take advantage of people just because you want to make a buck and not be a part of society and be a functioning member to the community of the world. It's just really upsetting. I don't know why it's hitting me really hard today, but it just is. Within the commune, a follower's time was completely controlled. Everyone living at the commune worked, and they were told when to meditate, when to eat, and when to sleep. For a cult that preaches ultimate freedom, this really doesn't feel like freedom at all to me. But it makes sense if we consider the patterns of cult leaders. The biggest fear of a cult leader is that a follower will start to question things. But the busier someone is, the more occupied their mental space is. So that's why the bee and the bite model is so important. Because if you can control someone's behavior, you can ultimately control their mind and eventually their money. One of Miracle of Love's primary rules was the mind has no answers, the heart has no questions. So if you were a good follower, you would shame yourself for even having a question at all, because if you are so devoted to loving God, you would trust that the person who's embodying God's energy, Kalindi, isn't doing anything wrong. Of course she's telling you ultimate truths because she's basically God. It's just Ooh, I'm getting heated now. This teaches the followers that they can never really trust their own mind. And if they do question their leader, then they are just in the illusion or living in ego. And it's so crazy. I remember this so clearly now that one of the teachings, even in the online group, was that ego, stood for edging God out. So if you ever had a thought or instinct that something wasn't right, if you like listened to your, I don't know, your intuition or your gut instinct, well, that was just your ego and you were effectively edging God out. Shame on you. Kalindi even came up with a list called the 10 no's, and they literally discourage all critical thinking. So, one, no assumptions or speculation. Well, I'd be out of that group right away because we all know I love to speculate. Two, no hearsay. Three, no rumors. Four, no gossip. So basically, they're just like discouraging you from talking about anything that's concerning you with another group member. And I'm pretty sure this group also encouraged spying on each other and reporting each other if any of these rules were broken. There was no discouragement, no judgment, no negative thinking, which obviously classic cult leader tactic right there. We heard that in my recent interview with my anonymous source about Twin Flames Universe. They could not even say anything remotely negative, not a negative thought, a negative concern, whether it was about the group or otherwise. It's just a classic cult tactic. No wallowing, and 9, no issues. Like, what kind of rule is that? No issues? No issues. That could be anything. You could say, "Hey, I'm still kind of hungry after dinner," and Kalindi would be like, "Rule number 9, no issues. Sounds like a you problem." And 10, of course, is no complaining. So if you were caught breaking any of these rules, you would basically be publicly shamed for it and forced to publicly acknowledge your wrongdoing in order to get back in good terms and in order to get closer to God. So public shame is a tactic we haven't talked about a lot on my channel, but it is probably one of the most commonly used tactics by cult leaders because it makes the person feel shamed and so incredibly bad about themselves. It makes that person even more desperate for acceptance. So they end up doubling down on the cult teachings just to prove that they're worthy to be in that group and they're worthy of the leader's love and acceptance. So I just want to take a moment to break this all down because we've covered a lot. So to kind of get into this cult, it used to be you have a 6-day intensive where people expose their most vulnerable selves. But since they leave that intensive on such a high on these endorphins, they begin subscribing to Kalindi's process. They begin following her teachings, practicing her meditations, and seeking her out. A lot of them end up moving to one of the communes, whether they go on their own accord or Kalindi has told them that they have a special purpose within the group, they go. People are encouraged to donate to Kalindi's nonprofit while being indoctrinated to abandon everything they own, know, and their families. They're encouraged to release all attachments to all things that distract them from focusing on loving God. Once they arrive in that commune, all their time is controlled. They're discouraged from visiting family and encouraged to be sexually promiscuous to release their blockages. Oh, and by the way, they aren't allowed to be homosexual. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure I didn't leave that part out. They started saying that no one could be homosexual in their commune. Every aspect of these people's lives were being controlled because that control was the pathway to ultimate godly love and ultimate freedom. And what is Kalindi getting in return? Just the knowledge that she's helping thousands of people? No, she's getting people to work for her for free, donate money to her whenever she wants anything. Apparently, she started having a very certain type of expected lifestyle, and whenever she wanted something new, she would have another fundraiser. She also gets power, she gets control. She has people worshiping her and putting her on a pedestal. And she doesn't have to pay taxes on any of her nearly millions of dollars of donations because everything is being filtered through this fake nonprofit because she's providing a service to the community. I mean, sounds exactly like another group that we've been talking about on this channel. This seems to be, in my opinion, and allegedly, the playbook Jeff and Shalia are using in their Twin Flames universe scheme. Of course, that's just speculation. My opinion has not been proved. Kalindi has the audacity to encourage her followers to abandon their sexuality, their families, their jobs. Also, she could just exercise control over them and feed them lies. It's disgusting. After a 15-year reign, Kalindi would pass away from kidney failure in 2010. So what would happen to the group? Well, the power would be transferred once again to her second in command and longtime friend, a woman who is still alive, still leading Center of the Golden One in Colorado, and she goes by The Lady. And as of 2 years ago, they applied to become a nonprofit because that was one of the last ditch efforts that they made to keep me in the group, was to give me a scholarship because it was going to be a nonprofit and they could afford to give back to me in that way. So I hope they didn't get accepted to be a nonprofit, but who knows? But, things haven't been so easy for The Lady since the death of Kalindi. See, the group, although it had started in California, had spread quickly to Germany, where the group had been thriving for years. So in 2011, when an expose was released about the Miracle of Love group, the group came crumbling to the ground. A Dutch investigative journalist named Alberto Stegman managed to secretly infiltrate the group for a year and record some incredibly incriminating images and videos about what was really going on behind closed doors. Since ex-members had been terrified to speak out publicly about the group, this was the first time that there was public proof of what had happened to them. And the people within the group began to wake up and realize that they had actually been enduring abuse for a long time. I've tried to find this television program and I am unable to watch it, and I'm so sad because I think it's because I'm in the US. I don't have VPN access to the production. So if anyone wants to report back to me, I would really appreciate it because I would really, really love to see what this basically documentary uncovered.
Now, after practicing the Grasana meditation practice and all the work around the mission for around 7 years, I can say that I'm still not satisfied, but I know where home is, and I'm very close. I feel very close. I feel like Grasana is like my real father, like kind of like Kalindi and Grasana are like the parents I always wanted, and they never told me ever a lie, and they always gave me the respect to be upfront. And for that, I could never say thank you in my heart enough. Kalindi's my miracle worker, and without her talks and all the work she did, I wouldn't know God as well, and I would just I just can't imagine life without it, without the energy of the seminar, without the love that the community holds for each other, just knowing that we are there for each other. Even now we talk in America, Australia, all the people that watch this, it's just like all in our hearts and we carry it. And it's so wonderful, just to have that with me all the time. I have a peace, more of a peace from just knowing that my life isn't a waste of time. There's meaning to it, and that I can do something with my love, actually. And that I can express myself like completely in many ways, from sensuality to all the way to like mathematics, accounting, to the way I dress, to the way I talk to people. It's like I can like finally get out what I couldn't my whole life, to express my true love and spirit. That's been the biggest thing for me, to be able to get that out. That was what was kind of guiding me to leave Australia, to start meditation, to look at setting goals, and the start of feeling empty. was from that not being able to express my love. There came a point of reflection where I had to realize, like, why am I here? Uh, what is in my future? You know, and what do I want? What do I want? And I, just by being alone and doing weekly meditation and I guess being prayerful in my own way, just in life, wanting more love, I guess I just came to see the truth myself that I love the meditation community and the work, and that it's so dear to me that I couldn't leave here, actually. I know that I will base my life around the center of the Golden One meditation work. And the focus is for me now is how can I give? And really my only desire is to establish myself in a big position of service. Not like big like the king, but big like consumed, like all of my colors used and magic, and give to others and like have the same door open that was open for me. And that breaks my heart to the max. Like it's the most maybe you could say it's the X point where my love and God's comes together. And I feel at peace with that, you know. At first I was like, oh my God, live for the meditation mission, or like, oh my God, I'm a loser, what the hell? But no, all those thoughts like fell off like dead leaves. And I feel at peace with that. And there's nothing I would rather do more with my life. And of course, I still have a family on the other side of the world, which I will visit. But I know I would die in peace walking this way. I could cry in gratitude if I felt it, even just for a few minutes, because it's so wonderful.
When I first realized what this group was, this was the video that was really the nail in the coffin for me. I was honestly horrified to see that people were still devoting their lives to this group, uprooting their lives to go to some random city to devote themselves to a false guru. And as I began researching recently for this video, I found absolutely heartbreaking testimonials from the people that were in my group. Many of these people were in AA and had been preyed upon by one of the people who led the online breathwork courses because he was also in AA. I remember looking around the Zoom room and having that realization of, I think I'm one of the only people who isn't currently in AA. And that really started to open my eyes to how predatory this group leader was being. I mean, these were people who were trying to rebuild their lives, and they're just being completely manipulated. There were young mothers who didn't have money to spend hundreds of dollars a week on these practices, but they did it because they honestly believed that it was the path to a happy and fulfilled life. There were divorcees who, after years of having a partner by their side through each of their decisions, are all of a sudden on their own, trying to create new life from heartbreak. People were encouraged to just quit their jobs without a backup plan, and then they would suffer the consequences of that. Every testimonial from my group was tearful and painful to watch. And it's kind of hard for me to watch and think about. And that's just partly why I'm not sharing those testimonials here, because I don't really have a means to reach out to them. Like, we never really got to know each other's full name. We never got to know each other's email addresses. And I'm sure if I hadn't left when I did, I could have reached out and gotten their contact info. But I guess it's been a couple years and I feel so separate from the group that I don't know what I can do at this point to encourage them to leave. Honestly, I just hope that they see this video. When I left, they were starting their in-person retreats again, and it scares me to think that some of these people could have uprooted their life and that this group might be on the rise again. However, I was happy to see that the group has recently received some bad press with the exposure of the Mother of God cult that's based in Colorado. A popular Colorado magazine decided to make a list of cults that still exist in Colorado today, and luckily, Center of the Golden One, formerly known as Miracle of Love, was featured on this list, and thank goodness, because it has been operating under the guise of a meditation center for far too long. Ever since this truth was exposed back in 2011, the lady has been struggling to rebuild what the group once was. Apparently, she did a really good job of trying to scrub the internet of negative information that'd been circulating after that expose. So I hope that with that recent article and along with this video, more people will become aware. It will help protect the community and the internet from joining this and other cults. Instead of doing a 6-day intensive, which they still do intensives in Germany here and there based off of their Facebook group, but now their tactic is to have these online meditations. They're typically word of mouth. They're not really marketed, probably because they're afraid of bad press or bad comments or negative reactions. And then after time, they gain people's trust. People travel to attend their in person workshops, and then slowly but surely, the group just keeps growing and growing. So I believe the more internet exposure that we can put on this group means there will be less people to manipulate and take advantage of. Because the impact this cult had on people has harmed them for years, maybe even decades. So I can only hope that the victims are finding the healing they need. And please, if you were part of my group and you recognize my face and you see this, please feel free to email me. I would love to connect with you. I really hope that you found this video helpful, and I hope that it helps prove that cults can be online, and they almost always translate to an in-person commune where real abuse starts to take place. I would argue that it's even easier to grow a cult nowadays because of the internet. And if you can just begin to see those red flags early enough, you'll know to take a step back before it's too late, and you'll know how to protect others as well. When I was getting out of this group, I was deep into learning about Nexium, and I honestly believe that those documentaries, that and Seduced, helped me really start to see the red flags. So hopefully, if you just educate yourself more, you'll be able to see those red flags. And that's really the intention of my entire channel, is to hopefully spread far and wide that these groups do exist and anybody can get sucked in. It doesn't matter your background, your belief system, how smart you are, what kind of job you have. If they get you at the right time when you're just vulnerable enough, you can get sucked in. So just please be aware of the red flags. So please don't forget to check out Carly's Amazon wish list down in the pinned comment below. And I hope you have a great and safe rest of your week. Remember, it is always okay to ask questions, and anyone who tells you otherwise might just be a cult leader. Thank you so much for your support, and until next time, goodbye.